Welcome everyone to this Living a Legacy, a Life workshop on a Saturday. Today, the topic is 5 mistakes when journaling about living a legacy life. So, what I'm going to be doing is sharing these 5 mistakes, and I'll list them out here in a second. But also, I'm going to give you some solutions and personal stories that go with that so that you have something to work with. Now, this topic came about because there's been a lot of people asking me about journals and journaling, and I have a journal over here that I use, and then sometimes I'll pick up one of my plain ones and I'll doodle and write into it. And so persons, olders, agers have been asking me, and I thought, okay, it's time to run a workshop, but I thought I would do it from the perspective of mistakes that I've made over the years, and in some conversations with some of those that I've interacted with, they have said these are the kind of things that they stumbled on and did it from that perspective. So these workshops on Saturdays are very open and free, and there is the ability to put questions in the chat function that's around the video here. This is being live streamed. So it has a certain rawness to it, and that's okay. And I enjoy it because what it does is it gets me back into those days when I was actually in a room and there was a group of persons that I had, and maybe it was a multi day, 5 day creative workshop for leadership and that. And I so enjoyed those. And now having the opportunity to do it through a live stream, I'm going to take it up and see what happens. So, let's just remind ourselves of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at these 5 mistakes that I'm just going to show you here. There's lack of clarity from consistency, avoiding authenticity and difficult topics, overcomplicating the process while neglecting felt safety, neglecting reflection, revision, revamping, the rewords, and ignoring growth opportunities and overlooking achievements. So these were the 5 that I came up with that I thought that I would play with and see what we could do today and open up possibilities here. But just before we get into that, I just again to recognize is that I am using the draw function here as well. So what will take place is that I will be doodling and making notes along the way. So, with these 5 mistakes with journaling about living a legacy life, one of the things you have to remember is a legacy life is one in which you are figuring out uh, through a allocation of your time, effort, and money what gifts you want to share with others so they can learn something from your experiences. And I am of the belief that you live from the legacy that you intend to leave. And therefore, journaling is a really wonderful way. Now, you could do sketching, doodling, sculpting, whatever creative art that you wish to express this living legacy life. You can use that. I know of persons who create quilts, and in there are stories, and they do it that way. I'm coming forth with the journaling. It's a technique tool that I use. I have been using it. 40, almost 50 years now. I actually, one of my first long term journals was for my trip from Kathmandu in in Nepal to London, England, over about 30, no, it was about 50 some days, 60 days. And I journaled each day about where we were, what I spent my money on, and just I actually have that, and I'm digging into it to create a bit of an autobiography as one of my contributions. So journals are great. You may even have some of your own. If not, this is a good time to start one. And therefore, having some of these ideas to avoid these mistakes, and that plays out on a really great basis. So, for this to come to fruition, a key concept is here: transitional journey. So, from a transition point of view, there's three types of transition: transactional, transformational, and transcendent. The transactional is just a give and take. Transformation is you're going to shift the form of what's happening. Transcendence is you tend to go to somewhere you don't even know what it's going to look like on it once you get there. But once you get there, you can figure out what's taking place. So it's sort of a nested model. So this transitional journey through your journaling, you can do transactional. Okay, I thought this, I'll do this. Transformational is, oh, I thought I'll do this, and this will give me this way of being at the other side. Transcendent is, I'm going to put some hope and faith and grace into this, and let's see what actually takes place. So that's another way to look at it. So these common mistakes that I'm going to go over with you, okay, are just a way in which to summarize some of the ideas that I've got from others, because I'm always in conversation with olders, agers, 50 plus, helping them, but I'm asking them to help me by giving me ideas. And so if we can avoid these common mistakes, then that's really helpful in moving forward. So with this presentation, I want to just acknowledge that this younger, older, elder programming that I do is one that is really near and dear to my heart. And therefore, these Saturday mornings are just a way for me to give back, in a sense, to gift some insights and experiences. So there's sort of like legacy contributions on Saturdays. And at the end, I'll acknowledge which one I'm going to do next week. So if you want to join in, please do. And because they're live, you can come in and or you can watch them afterwards because they'll be up and available for you. So the first one that I want to take a look at is this lack of clarity from consistency. Clarity from consistency is one of the 5 C's that I play with, and it's always a constant reminder. Am I clarifying from a consistent point of view? Am I accessing things that are going to clarify, and are they consistent in their approach? In other words, who influences me and I influence who, and I'm balancing this off, and that's part of my legacy story in doing that. And therefore, writing from clarity, the purpose, focus, rather than sometimes a fragmented, disjointed, or unclear journal entries is important. I'm not saying don't write random ideas. They can be used as prompts later. I get that. But also just think about, well, if I'm going to be journaling, I'm going to be journaling about topics that I want to improve, focus, and strengthen. I may want to improve, focus, and strengthen for myself or in the gifts that I want to give to others. And therefore, if you maintain some sense of clarity as you're moving forward and making sure you're clear about your intentions, the themes you want to work with, the objectives that you want to write from, then that helps you to enter in and go, oh, okay, this helps me here, this helps me here. Now, over time, I actually developed my own journaling language vis-a-vis visual language. And that helps me tremendously. It's because I can, in a few drawings, summarize a lot of tools and techniques. Again, these are things that you can experiment with. And if that's a topic you'd like me to cover at another time, the notion of visual language, I can certainly do that. So let me know down in the comments section. But this idea here from a consistency point of view is that if you're going for clarity, you want to do it so that you have some kind of consistency at the same time. Because do you have a time that you may want to write? I find that I do my writing or collecting my thoughts later in the evening, 8, 9 o'clock. Now, I sometimes used to do it early in the morning, but I find myself, I create YouTube shorts as my reflection. So I have taken this idea of journaling and I've put it through this YouTube Shorts way of doing things. And therefore, I have a video journal now that I'm creating. So again, there's another idea there. If that's something you'd like me to expand on another time, just ask away and I'll do that for you. So with this, from a consistency point of view, is you want to have time where you can get into flow and continuity. That's important. Um, Now that could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I play around with about 55 minutes. Again, it's just a number I like to work with. And so I'll play with that timeline and see what comes of it. So what happens is by setting up that regular journaling, then what you have is you have a time to do that reflection to go, oh, okay. And I'm going to mention a couple of reflection errors a little bit later here. But you want this journaling for yourself to document, capture these ideas that you have. I don't know about you, but sometimes I may be laying there in bed and that just waking up time and I go, oh, that's a really good idea. And I forget to actually write it down. So I'm learning again to put some paper and pens beside the bed and go, oh, okay, write this down and make sure that I capture it so I don't lose it. So that's the common errors from clarity and consistency is make sure you're doing it with clarity and you're doing it with some consistency, whatever that might be for you. The next one I want to take a look at is authenticity. Oh, difficult topic. Oh. Oh my goodness. When I was doing some of my journaling, there were times where I would write around what was going on, not actually getting into it. And when I started to write as I was feeling it and understanding it and sort of dove in there with those emotions and being authentic with myself. And if I had to cry while I was writing, I would cry while I was writing. If I had to get into some topics. There were certain things happen in my life that I had to go, okay, I got to get in here and find out what's going on and dug around in them. And I found that by doing that, I was able to bring the words, my experiences to the foreground so I could look at them and find a way to what I call equilibrate them, take the charge away from those experiences. And I found it to be really quite useful. And I found myself getting those breakthroughs. And that really helped me to deal with some situations I didn't want to deal with. So, failing to express those genuine thoughts is what creeps in here. And I've been in conversation with Walter, and Walter had a couple of interesting times in his life with accidents and that in the out of doors. And he never really took the time to look at them through a lens of, well, what could I learn from this? And because he sort of, as he said to me, and these are his words, he said, well, I wanted to make sure that, I dug in. Yeah, there were errors, but that's okay. That's just part of being me in the out of doors. And I said, did that serve you? And now that he's in his what is he now, mid 70s, he said, you know what, it doesn't. And I've actually started journeying a little bit more about those accidents. One of them was he buried an axe in his knee while he was building a log cabin, and he just sort of grunted through it, and at the end of the day went to the doctor, and he sort of got infected knee, and that has plagued him for years to come. So he had to really think through what that meant for him. So that was an interesting time, but now that he's writing about it, he is finding that that experience is really helping him to deal with other elements of his own life. So being honest and authentic in your approach and really expressing those genuine thoughts, okay, and feelings, that's really going to help you. And the core for me is that this is the part was without any judgment. And that's why I wanted to get rid of the charge. I didn't want to have this feeling of, okay, this is what hindered me, and okay, I'll grunt through that and get on with it. No, I wrote about it and tried to then figure out, okay, well, what was the help of that hinder? But there's also the hinders of the helps. And so I was getting all jumbled up in there. And then I said, well, if I write about all of that, the hinders and helps from all perspectives, sort of looking at the two ends of the stick. So, you got this one end, you got the other end, but looking at it from a whole, then I could get into the authenticness of what was taking place. So with that, that also meant is there were times when these difficult topics would arise. And now that I find myself in my 70th revolution of the sun, almost my 71st, is every once in a while a memory will pop back in and I go, oh, hang on a minute, where did that come from? And sometimes those memories are less than stellar events in my life that I thought, well, I've taken care of that, let it go. But sometimes it might pop up and I might find myself feeling a little uncomfortable around it. And I go, all right, what is it that I can do to be able to understand and value that situation? So, yes, I can understand it, and then I can comprehend it, I can analyze it, synthesize it. What's the value that that brings? There's always value that comes forth in, okay, what can I improve, focus, and strengthen in my life because of that difficult topic now that I fully understand it? And therefore, I can go after that growth. So I encourage you, don't shy away from difficult topics. If they're there, deal with them and find out. If you need some support with that, there are mentors, there are also mental health practitioners that can support you as well. And from full disclosure, I have asked for assistance from a couple of persons, twice from counselors and once from a very deep, reflective mentor that I interacted with, and they were great. I appreciate those times. They really meant a lot to me. The next one that I want to look at is this overcomplicating the process while neglecting felt safety. So, boy, can we overcomplicate processes? There's times when I've sat down, I got my colored pencils out, I've got my sharpeners, I've got my glue, I've got my tape, I've got my scissors, I've got everything there, my cup of tea, I'm ready to go, and nothing comes out. And there's other times I just, you know what, I think it's time to do a little reflection. I just sit down with my half sharpened pencil and I just write and I just enjoy myself. So find what that process is for you. Now, it might be a blend. Sometimes do it with that full organization, sometimes from a freelancing point of view. What you're after is that expression and exploration. I think that's what's important here. And I've actually done it where I've taken a notebook in my pack. I was just looking, yeah, my pack's over there. that I've taken just a pencil and a notepad and just sat underneath a tree and journaled out some thoughts that came to me while I was walking, and that's okay as well. So, what you're going to be doing here is don't impose those unnecessary constraints and expectations on yourself. Be a little bit, have that fun and that freedom to sort of see what happens for you. Now, there's times you might go, guess what? I'm going to get together with myself. I'm going to go for a walk on Saturday. I'm going to go spend some time with the trees, and I am going to do some journaling. Okay, if it works, great. But at the same time, just put things in perspective is you might find that you might go sit in an open field or on some rocks and write and not be with the trees per se. So be open to what happens for you. This concept of felt safety, if there's anything that I have learned over time, is to make sure that from a um, physical, mental, emotional, soluble, spiritual, whole versical sense, is that I'm feeling safe in my journaling. And that comes from, at one point in time, a friend that was staying at the house with me found one of my journals, and I had left it out from journaling that morning. And when I came back in a little bit later from my walk, they started asking me some questions about what had been happening in my life, and where are they getting these prompts from? What's going on? And I just something said to me is, what's happening here? What's going on? And what had happened is they had read the journal, and I just happened to glance over and notice that I normally put my pen down on top of my journal, which is my signal that I finished writing. And the pen was off to the side. And so I had to do a little adjustment in my thinking, my expressing, and found out and got the person basically said, well, I had found it. I thought it was something else. It happened to be your journal. I apologize. And we had to have a little conversation about felt safety and mine, and it actually turned out from themselves as well. So this felt safety, setting up safer practices and setting up safe systems in which to do your journaling, you've got to really pay attention to that. And sometimes if you have to, like for example, you may have to set up some kind of code system in your journal. Again, these are things to think about. And as you maybe dive into how to journal, then some of these techniques and tools will come to the foreground. Why I'm bringing this up is from the sense of cultivating this self concept that I'm okay when I'm interacting with my journal, be kind to myself, be better, wiser, kinder to myself, and know that the journaling is a way in which to come to some sense of acceptance. And if I can get to the agreement eventually about what's taking place, then great, because it's uh, a, a place to, a space to have these non-judgmental ideas running around in your head. So that simpler, better, wiser orientation, I encourage you to think that through as you're doing your journaling from a felt safety and not overcomplicating it. So with that, I've covered off three important mistakes to cover off, and I encourage you to, if you need to, stop. And if you're watching this after the live and just going, okay, what is it that I've learned from what he's been sharing? Then write that down in your journal before you go into the next couple. But there's a couple more that I want to go over. But just before I do that, I would certainly encourage you, if you wouldn't mind, is to subscribe to this channel, and please add comments. I don't see anything in the chat function at this point in time. Nope, there's nothing there at this point. So if you have a question at this juncture or even later, you can put in the comments section. I come back and I take a look at the comments. So with that, let's get back into what would be called the fourth one, which is, oh, the rewords. Now, this is kind of a fun one because it's neglecting the reflection, revision, revamping kind of idea. Now, there are those that I've chatted with, and I had a couple of people say, I just write in what's going on. I don't do any reflection. I go, okay, why is that? Oh, I don't want to dive into it. I'll come back to that a little bit later. I go, okay, have you? One person went, "No, I'm just trying to clean things out, declutter my mind, and get things down." Fair enough. Fair enough. Do you think you'll ever go back and look at them? Yeah, probably at some point. So you can see where this conversation was going. And I go, what would happen if you did a little bit of reflection on some of those ideas from a improved focus and strength point of view? Yeah, okay. And so we haven't done a follow up. Maybe someday I might have them as a guest, and we can talk about what happened for them. But this idea of reflection and revision is, if you don't do the reflection and get in there, it's difficult to do any kind of revision to your being, having, and doing. And I think journaling helps you with your be, have, do, to behave to your doing. It gives you a sense of, right, what is it that's impacting you? What is it? What are the implications for you? What are the things that are undermining what's going on in your life? And if you don't get into those, then you're missing out on opportunities to gain your insights and get those lessons learned and get those growth opportunities, right? And from a living legacy life point of view, figuring out what your gift contributions are going to be, those legacy stories, or even if it's a bigger project, having these opportunities to reflect and do revision will actually help you in sharing those gifts. But there's another aspect, is taking the revision and revamping and not doing the revamping. In other words, failing to revisit and review and reflect on those entries. That if you don't do that, it's difficult to do what I call revamping. Okay. And from a perspective of VAMP, voice, authority, mastery, and position. Through your journaling, what you can do is improve your voice and your authority, your authenticity, as shared earlier, your mastery of what it is that you're doing, your position that you find yourself. When you're able to do that and you improve that process for yourself, then you have core ideas that allow you to really get into areas of development and get you into more growth opportunities, because the reflection, revision, and revamping that you do, then you won't find yourself in situations of ire. That's another word for anxiousness or angst. Now, think about it this way. If you put ire with vamp, you become a vampire. In other words, things are not working out so good for you and those you're interacting with. So find the process of your vamping, and you've got something to work with. So don't neglect your reflection, your revision, and your revamping. They will be of great assistance to you, because as you move into the next one, if you ignore these growth opportunities and overlook your achievements, then what's going to take place is it can limit your personal and professional evolution. Now, you're an older ager. Now, if 50 plus, 60, 70, you might find yourself and you're going, oh, hang on a minute. Do I want to improve myself, focus and strengthen my personal being, my profession? Do I want to continue some of my career aspects? Are some of the things that I learned during my career and my life personally, could I gift those somehow? Book, course, mentoring? Could I pull those together? Because what they're going to do by exploring those challenges and setbacks, your successes and experiences, you got something to pull from to be able to add to the conversation that you're having with others. And that's why it's important that you don't forget the kind of achievements that you have. So if you're just looking at the challenges and setbacks without looking at the achievements or accomplishments, and achievements is for yourself, accomplishments you did with others. So on your unique journey, there's achievements. On your adventures together, there's accomplishments. If you're not looking at those, and journaling about them in such a way to be able to acknowledge and celebrate them and appreciate them, then you may be missing out, because this acknowledge, celebrate, appreciate is actually a really fun way in which to bring what I'm going to call fun, freedom, and fulfillment to the foreground in living your legacy life. And sometimes we just go, okay, well, that happened, that's fine. But sometimes in there are some really great nuggets that you can pull from, and they could become an article, they could become a video, they could be a conversation piece, they could be something to organize a party around, a dinner around. These are different nuggets that are giving you this idea of fostering this enthusiasm and gratitude that you can touch base with. So don't ignore your growth opportunities and overlooking your achievements. They're great as well. You dig into them, find out what is there. So, what's happened here is that I want to just give you a sense then of the ideas that are for you and from you, because of you, through you, that would be of great value to everyone that you interact with. So, from a legacy life, a living a legacy life point of view, there are going to be recipients of your gifts, as there are going to be supporters and contributors. In the business world, that was called stakeholders, right? That broad sense. But there are the recipients, there are the contributors, supporters. Now, friends, families, colleagues, others that you invite to get involved with what it is that you're doing. So when you're able to figure out some of that, then what takes place is keep uh, to the foreground of understanding that avoid lack of clarity and consistency. So in other words, get clarity from consistency. Avoid authenticity in difficult tasks. No, run into your authenticity and those difficult topics. If you're going to overcomplicate the process or neglecting felt safety, flip that around and say, this is the process I'm going to use. I'm going to keep felt safety foreground of what it is that I'm doing. I'm going to make sure that I am going to reflect, revise, and revamp. Yeah, I'm not going to neglect that. I'm going to actually do that in my journaling. And then get into understanding what your growth opportunities, and don't overlook your achievements. These are important elements of what it is that you want to do. So from that perspective, okay, I think that that sort of covers off what I wanted to cover today. And therefore, again, just to remind you to think about subscribing to the channel. And if you have comments, so let me just go, there's no chat points here now. Then please do afterwards, if you're listening into this, put comments down below. I'd love to hear what you got to share and your questions. I appreciate questions, I appreciate comments. They're always enjoyable for me to be able to catch on to. So what I want to do now, RK, is to just give you a sense of what's possible for the next go around. So what I'd like to do is just bring up a clean board here. That's where I'm going right now. Clean board, so that what I can do is just share with you the ideas about next week. So what we're going to do, okay, is we are going to take a look at this topic. There is evidence of your living life. There is an education approach or approaches that you're interacting with that gives you the sense of experiences. So, from a history point of view, you have your evidence. And if you're going to share that, there's some kind of education approach you want to do. And therefore, you're going to create experiences for others. Now, the great thing is, you might go from a mystery point of view from the future. There are experiences I want to have. What education experience do I want to bring? And what is it that I want to collect as evidence? Because what's going to take place, and this is the interesting part of it, and that's why I want to share this in a much deeper way with you, is that what's taking place is they're chasing themselves. Okay. They are chasing themselves all the time. So, what is happening, okay, is it's sort of like a dog chasing its tail, okay? So, what is taking place? They're chasing themselves. And therefore, this evidence education experience becomes a catalyst for you to work with. And they are really helpful in creating journal entries. So that's what we're going to cover off next week. It'll be live at 10 a.m. on Calgary Mountain Time. So please join us. Come to Younger, Older, Elder, and you will find reference to it coming up. There will be the live broadcast notice that's there. So you can join that morning and come on in. And again, remember, these are raw, unfiltered, just as they are going to happen. You probably even notice different um, lighting that's happening. I just sitting here in my office, working with what's available. I'm not getting anything fancy. There's no fancy studio around me. This is just raw, unfiltered, doing the legacy journal work. Okay, get my fingers correct, and then I will be sharing books that I have all around me in future issues. So with that, I'm going to say take care, but just for let me just go check. Nope, there's nothing in the chat area, so that's great. So with that, I just want to say thank you and take care of yourself. Enjoy your journaling, and if you do have questions or you want something expanded on, just let me know. So take care.